have a plan. So I was glad to hear that you say that you would have a plan. But so normally what we do is we start talking to them about things you do before you ever start a business. So I have about 5 things I typically tell them to do, and I start off with I tell them to do a self-assessment. And so what we're asking them to do basically is to look at their strengths and weaknesses, but focus more on enhancing their strengths. Because typically when we're not so good at something, we kind of get all hung up on that, and we spend so much time working on trying to improve the thing that we're the weakest at, that we don't kind of build on our strengths. So let's say I'm I have a lot of charisma, for example, and I can use that to make some contacts and be persuasive, maybe convince people to come aboard and help me with my business. So what I would say is to work to enhance that particular asset that you have. The second thing we tell them is to perform a personal financial assessment. Typically when we deal with people that want to get monies and we have to take them to financial institutions, we have to look at their credit. So normally we want them to have already looked at their credit, to be able to share certain information with us and to tell us the truth about their credit. So you got to have your credit in place, otherwise nobody really is going to loan you any money. Before we got into this kind of financial crisis that we've been in the last probably year and a half, some banks offer a little flexibility where your credit does not necessarily have to be perfect. It can be maybe near perfect, and maybe you get through. But now it's got to be really, really good because the banks, because of the things they've gone through, they've tightened up. So you want to check your credit. You want to know what your financial assets and liabilities are. Basically knowing what you bring to the table personally, financially. Because I was working with the lady just today, and she wanted to borrow, I think about 50 grand, but she had no assets to offer. So I was asking her, do you really think the bank is going to take the whole risk for something that you're calling your business? And I was telling her that was kind of unrealistic. Now the third thing I always tell everybody is that they need to develop some type of reading program. So you might say, well, why do you need to do a reading program? Well, I have probably interviewed, probably about over the last 12 years, about maybe 1,000 business owners and talked to them on various subjects. And I will tell you that the ones that have been, what I would say, highly successful, I'm just going to use a number, I'll say the men and women that are doing maybe $5 million in their businesses and up, we'll just say those are successful folks. Every time I've interviewed them and I've gone into their offices, I always see the same thing. What was that? They all have shelves of different books. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that they've read every book, but they normally are very conversant on the particular industry that they're in. They're normally very aware of their surroundings, what's going on in the economy, what's going on in their general environment, and they can, they're very conversant in those areas. So you need that program. And I always laugh. One of my favorite people always laugh at me because I tell them one of my favorite places to go is to go to a bookstore like a Barnes and Nobles or Books A Million. And I'll go there just to maybe read the newspaper or look at some books and that kind of thing. And while I'm sitting there, typically I'll hear people talking about things. And I may learn where different jobs are in the city that are not actually placed in the newspaper, because most of your jobs are not publicized that are available. I may learn some stock tip that I'm sitting there, and I may hear people talking about NASDAQ, so I tune up, not just trying to eavesdrop, but just hearing things. But if I'm not well read, if I don't know what they're talking about when they mention something like NASDAQ, I may miss a tip. So you want to have that reading program. Another thing that we tell them to do is to build even before that, but to get involved in their communities. Now, normally, when you say get involved in communities, you may work with some nonprofit organization. Well, just as an individual, if you're doing something good, I'm working with North Alabama Sickle Cell or American Cancer Society or something like that. Or maybe I may be doing something like tutoring kids at school. You get a nice, warm, tingly feeling because you're doing something good. So that's just one part of it. The other part is But while you're talking, you got this business thing. So I say, well, if somebody shares with me, we've been working on a community together, and they say, well, hey Jerry, look, I want to do this business. I've always wanted to do it. Here's my idea. I do have a business plan, but I really don't have any money. Well, it may be that because I've worked with you over time, and I've seen you, and I think you're a person of good character, I may decide that, hey, I want to help that particular person. And a lot of times folks don't believe me. I use an example. Probably about 15 years ago, I started a business. Didn't have much money. I had a little money. I went to my church, and I was pretty active in my church. People know me, so I talked to my pastor. My pastor says, well, Jerry, told him what I needed. Trying to raise about 15 grand. And he says, well, Jerry, we're going to pray. And after we finished praying, he immediately told me that he could not help. He didn't have 15 grand. But he's promised me that on Sunday he would bring it up after he gave the message. And he was sure that some of the members of our church would want to help. So he goes on Sunday, he stands up, he does his thing, he finishes the message, and he goes and says, well, we got Brother Jerry Mitchell, you all know him, and he's a good person, he's been very active in the church, and he needs this money, he's got a business, and he's trying to do this thing, and he says that I like 15 members of the congregation to stand up and loan him $1,000 each. So he says, well, how many people can we get to stand up? So I'm all excited. I'm ready for this great, wonderful thing to happen. And nobody stood up. So of course, I was there with straight, my shoulders were sunk in. And I said, I'm tired of this church. I'm going to move to another church. This is just not right. Nobody can. But that night when I got home, I had 4 people call me that were members of our church. And they said, well, hey, Jerry, we come see us. We want to help you. And each of those people will loan me $5,000 each. So I actually wound up getting more than I had. I had a business plan, and I was trying to show them the business plan. And they said, well, no. We don't really understand exactly what you were doing, but we know you, we believe in you. And that's kind of what it's all about. So they're betting on the jockey, not necessarily the horse to finish the race. So I was able to get $20,000 in years on it. And so that's a story that's always stuck with me. So you've got to, be active. And being active, as I said, not only makes you feel good about yourself and what you're doing in the community and you're giving back, but also allows you to make some contact. And the last thing, as a person that's going into business, you do need to have a positive support system. And that could be family members, that could be friends, that could be maybe mentors that you may have. But the bottom line is you do want people that are going to tell you the truth. Maybe your business idea really isn't all that great. So you don't need a bunch of yes men and women in your positive network, but you do need some folks that will encourage you. I've had a number of people that have come into my office and they sit there and I watch grown men and women really burst into tears because they've got these businesses and they'll say, my spouse does not believe in what I'm doing. My family does not believe in what I'm doing. They're saying that I shouldn't have a business. I shouldn't even think about starting. And that's very discouraging. And if you're in a situation like that, that's just not going to be helpful to you in launching your business. So you want to have those 5 things. Now, if you get this business plan, of course, we're going to review it and make sure it has what it needs. But it's good to have this business plan because this is going to tell you if what you're trying to do makes sense. Your business plan should show you that. Does it make sense from a financial standpoint? Are you going to be able to make some money? I have folks come into the office and they say, I ask them why they want to start businesses, and they say that I want to help you. And normally when I say that, I'm not trying to be I tell them they should go off and start a nonprofit. Because when you start a business, you got to be about making money. If I'm Bill Gates, I'm making millions and billions of dollars. Because I'm doing it, I can help as many people as I want. But if I'm John Doe and my business is not doing anything, it's going to be real hard for me to help some folks because I'm struggling just to kind of keep my own head above water. So I won't have as much. Maybe I can give back some of my time, but from a financial standpoint, I'm not going to be able to maybe give financially to my community in the way that I may like. So we're going to help them kind of fine tune their business plan. We're going to try to help them link with a viable financial institution like BBA, Compass, um, um, and we're going to make sure there's a good match. Is this going to be an institution that's going to want to work with them and help them grow? And then if you're gonna, if you're really serious about going global with your business, that's gonna have to be part of your plan. That may be a long-range goal, so we want to see that in your business plan. And not only just see it verbalized, hey, I want to be global, but see an explanation as to how you're going to go global with your business. What's going to make your business successful? How are you going to market your business? Who's going to be your target customers? How much money are you going to need to even launch your business? What's your management team like? What are going to be the responsibilities of the key managers within your business? What type of employees do you need? Where are you going to get the employees from? Are you going to offer the employees benefits? What kind of skills do the employees need to have? So all of these things are going to be answered. Those are some of the things that are going to be answered in your business plan. And you're going to use that as a tool going forward with your business. And that plan is not just something that once you write it, you're just going to sit on the shelf and say, hey, I got a business plan now. The bank gave me some money and off I go. No, you're going to refer back to that business plan and use it kind of as a measuring stick to see if you're on track. If you have cash flow projections that are part of your business plan, you're going to track those. Okay, I said in the first month of business in April that I was going to generate $10,000 and only going to have maybe about $7,000 worth of expenses. Well, I'm looking at April 30th and I have the option. I'll generate the $7,000, but I've got $10,000 worth of expenses. So what am I going to do? What's my plan? Am I going to have to tweak some things going forward? So those are going to be some of the kind of things that you're going to be considering. We will certainly try to help them put a good team together, a good support team, a financial person, a legal person, mentors that maybe have been in business that can guide them along. So those would be some of the things that I would share with them. And of course, first and foremost, I certainly wouldn't want them to have prayed about this business venture that they're going to go into, because you've got to have, I believe, some spiritual background and backing and strong belief in what you're doing, and that's all going to be part of the equation. So we know that in business, not everybody is going to be successful, but certainly if you do all your planning up front, you're certainly going to have a better chance.